Outside the Box Reviews, we are taking a look at the Universal Select Wave 6 Mummy figure. This is the deluxe comic shop version, just like all the other ones I've reviewed so far. I have learned since my first videos that there is a Toys R Us version available, but it comes with less stuff, so I opted for the bigger, badder version. And as I talked about with the Wolfman, this is continuing on that theme of resurrecting a monster from a previous wave and giving him better articulation and better sculpting and all that good stuff that has gone into the later figures of this wave. I make the statement up front that with the Wolfman, I was a little upset that they didn't give us a different version of the Wolfman. I have a similar criticism here for this figure. I think it would have been really cool to give us, instead of the Imhotep mummy portrayed by Boris Karloff that we already had, maybe give us Karis, the Lon Chaney Jr. version of the monster. And that's kind of what I'm trying to replicate here with the one arm kind of stuck over to his chest. It's really kind of the more iconic mummy when you really look at the movies. But this is the one they gave us, so let's take a closer look at him. Just like the other figures in this wave, the mummy comes with a big display base, and this is the largest of the bunch, and my favorite of the bunch. First of all, unlike the other two, it actually has 2 pegs on it, which is really cool. They have this nice kind of Egyptian-looking stone base to it, sand or whatever this is supposed to be all over the place. We have a column back here. We can see there's some great detail on it. The different hieroglyphics carved in it, just cracks and wear and tear. Looking very cool, and unlike a lot of the other ones, this is actually visible from all angles. There's no side of it that's just hollow and empty. Then we have this kind of slab or box over here, which you can tell is a little ornamental, and that has a peg on top that we use for another accessory. We get the statue here, which I'm sure if I went back and watched the movie, they might call out what goddess this is supposed to be, but really cool looking. They did a great faux bronze or coppery look where it's that dark copper color, but some greens thrown in there to show the oxidation to it. The head's really nicely sculpted. The headdress is ornate. We have all these wrappings on her upper body there. She has a skirt going down, her sandaled feet. She's actually holding things in her hands. This is actually removable. Looks like an abacus, but I'm not sure if that's exactly what it is. And then on the other hand, she has an ankh. At least I'm pretty sure that's what that is. But very cool looking. And she does have a single peg hole in the middle of both of her feet, and that will actually peg in to the base here. Unfortunately, it's not a very deep peg. It almost looks like mine might be broken or misshapen, so it doesn't sit particularly well on mine, but it definitely does kind of hold it in place, and as long as it's flat on a surface, it's not going to fall off too easily. But she'll stand right up there. You can have her stand right up there on the pedestal and kind of loom over your scene, which is really, really neat. Diamond has also given us a couple other diorama building pieces. We have this piece here, it looks like part of a pot. Really nice looking, it's cracked around the top. There's a lot of dirt detailed on it, some cracks sculpted throughout it. A good texture to it overall. I think this is really neat that they gave us this. And similarly, we have what looks like a bottle. Some more kind of green around there, making it look weathered. Deep cracks in it. We have the cork detailed on the top. I think that's really cool. But the highlight here is the scroll. If I remember the movie right, this is the Scroll of Thoth, I think. But we had a open version of the scroll sitting on the ground, the display base of the original release. The Toys R Us version, at least. And this is kind of the rolled up version. It's much more detailed. You can see the hieroglyphics on it. Has some kind of reddish stains to it. The gold handles on the side. Just overall, a really impressive little piece here. And I'd actually taken the open one and pulled it off that base to have it in the hands of people when I try to set up displays, and now it's kind of cool just to have one that's rolled up and actually able to be used as an accessory. For the figure himself, I think they did a great job sculpting the mummy. There's definitely a vague Boris Karloff likeness here. You have the deep kind of hooded eyes, all the very deep wrinkles all through his head. Paint job's pretty good also, different levels of gray that almost kind of fade into a greenish. The hair is super slicked back on his head just like it was in the film, but the head does seem a little large. It might just be my imagination, but it seems a bit disproportionate to the rest of the body, but it's not horrible. The rest of the mummy's body is just wrapped in bandages. Once again, really good looking. Their sculpt is very ornate. There's a lot of dry brushing and washes in here to bring out all the sculpted detail, and it just continues down the entire body of the mummy through his his arms as well, up until we get to his hands, which are open. You can see it has that very same kind of wrinkled flesh as the face. His right hand here has his ring, and the left hand is sculpted a little more open and grabbing. Legs continue on the same bandage effect, so does the back of the figure too. Then we end in his mummy feet, which continue more the same. The wrappings even continue onto the bottom of the feet where he has his peg holes, except on this side where we have copyright info instead. On the foot, a much better place to put copyright info than the back of a figure. For articulation, the mummy has what's kind of become standard with these new figures. No real tricks here. The head's on a ball joint, he'll look pretty far up. Decent amount down, but not a ton. Move his head side to side as well as tilt. Pin socket shoulders, so go forward, back, as well as out to the side. Really easily, move really well. We have a bicep swivel. We have a hinge at the elbow that bends about 90 degrees as well as swivels. Once again, completely unnecessary, but it's there. You can rotate the hand at the wrist as well as hinge up and down. The mummy has a diaphragm joint up here. It's a ball joint, so you go a little forward, back, rotate side to side as well as tilt. And then he has a cut joint here at his waist, so you can rotate side to side. Legs will move forward, not back at all. They'll also go out to the side. With a cut joint in the mid-thigh. The knee bends about 90 degrees. The foot will move forward, back, and then it will also do an ankle pivot. For a size comparison, here's our Series 6 mummy next to the Series 1 mummies. On the left is the deluxe version from comic shops. On the right is the Toys R Us exclusive that most closely resembles this articulated figure. And wow, what a huge difference. Both sculpt, paint, articulation, pretty much everything is very different between these two versions of the mummy. Overall, I am very impressed with this mummy figure. He's definitely my favorite out of this wave. He is a huge improvement over the figure that came before him, something I didn't feel that the Wolfman was. Everything on him seems to be executed really well, granted being a very standard body and having not a lot of detail just inherent to the character probably does make that a little easier to pull off, but I really like his extra accessories. I love his display base. These other two figures I'm probably not going to display on their bases just for lack of space. I'm going to try to cram this base onto my display because it looks really cool. And this figure gets a very high recommend from me. If you have the old Toys R Us exclusive version, you can replace that with this one. If you have the comic shop version and the sarcophagus, you can put these two together and have really cool dual mummies. Now, the one thing I have noticed is this one is much larger than the others and will not fit in the sarcophagus, but that's a pretty minor complaint. Now, I'm really hoping that Universal Select will continue on past this wave. It's one of those lines that every time a series comes to a close, I'm never really sure if we're gonna get another one. But looking at the themes they've been running, I'm kind of done with the steampunk vampire hunter. They could stop doing that as far as I'm concerned. Though a Quincy Morris could be kind of cool, just instead of making it all steampunk, go Texas cowboy. That could be kind of fun, but whatever. But as far as figures to redo, there's not a whole lot left. Dracula would definitely be very high on my list. Dracula we have from them is pretty poor and looks nothing like any of the actors who've ever played Dracula in Universal horror movies. An updated Bride of Frankenstein figure would be kind of cool, but there are some other iconic characters I'd almost rather they hit. I would love to get an Igor from Son of Frankenstein. Right now I have the Sideshow version on my display and he's way too tall. Or just a Fritz or one of the other Dwight Fry characters, Renfield. But the one I would want more than any of those ties right in with the mummy here. I would love to get an Ardith Bay figure. I do not think any company's ever done a 7/8 inch scale Ardith Bay, and since the mummy is Ardith Bay, more than he's this Imhotep wrapped up mummy in the movie, I would be super excited to get that version of my collection. So on the off chance Diamond Select is listening and paying attention to me for advice for future waves, Ardith Bay, come on, do it. But that brings the Universal Monsters Wave 6 line to a close. I really do hope we get more in the future. But in the meantime, make sure to follow me on Instagram, username Outside the Box Reviews. Also check me out on Facebook, link below. And until next time, this has been our Outside the Box Reviews. Stay tuned for more to come.